Have you ever played a video game and have just been completely encapsulated by the world around you? The intrigue possibly being the beautiful vistas or the intense chase you just experienced? Maybe you completed a puzzle and found the process up to that point super engaging. I personally love these experiences, especially when the level itself is the source for all this fun, and I believe there are many of you that also share this feeling. I imagine you also would love to have a go at creating some too. Which leads to the question, how do you begin making levels? Isn't level design complicated? Don't you need multiple skill sets that can take years to develop? Or yeah, if you're trying to make a big fancy game trying to show off, what if though you did it for fun? A hobby maybe? Everything you wish to pursue or make doesn't need a greater outcome beyond making something you yourself worked on. And luckily, we have been blessed with some amazing ways to do this. The internet may lead you to believe that level design is difficult and torturous to pursue, but I hope today to provide you aspiring designers with the tools, resources and knowledge you may need to begin making levels. When approaching your first day of making a level, it can be tricky to figure out how exactly your level may come to life. An approach that can come in many forms and suited for all types of designers is to find a planning method that you find inspiring. The first method that I wish to present is to create your very own mass hoard of documentation. The most important documents being references from your favorite shows, games and movies that you've enjoyed. Anything at all that's ever piqued your interest, save it and document it. You can do this with screen captures, videos, writings and notes. You may come across these things already every day on social media or out and about in your local area. Ultimately, everything you think that is cool in one place. Make sure you also have your sketches and drawings that you've done in the past ready to use, as you may want to use them for references in future designs. If you already have some ideas in your mind for the level, or even when you're out and about, write or draw them down in whichever way suits you best. Some approaches I love are making maps of what you imagine your level to be. A simple drawing of shapes with names and their general purpose can go a long way in creating the foundations of what you're designing. I also like writing out my levels, how the player should perceive the level, what perspectives they have, and what's actually happening. I strongly recommend checking out Steve Lee's video, How I Design Levels in Text. It is a great dive into just the approach and thought process you should have when writing out your levels. Another more hands-on approach that may be a bit more technical for those with less experience is grayboxing. With grayboxing, you can create a 3D space that lays out the geometry and scale of how your level will feel. I personally love to begin in grayboxing as I can start to get the vibe of what type of scale I wish to work with and the overall general mechanics I may want present, which in itself can be a constructive way to approach getting your levels off the ground. You may not be able to create the mechanic yourself at this stage, but you can totally begin to flesh out the idea you have in mind. Figure out how it may interact with the level, what factors you may need to take into consideration once it can be implemented. If you find any of these methods a fun way to start fleshing out some ideas, then I strongly encourage diving into it, as this is where you can really think and expand before things become a bit more technical. And before we get into that, here's where I give a recommendation. With these methods alone, you have created your level. Yes, it may not exist within a 3D space or be playable, but you have now just created a rich resource full of ideas that can greatly benefit your ability to build and think level design. But if you do want to make that next step with this knowledge in your grasp, you are now capable of stepping into development. When deciding what tool to use when developing a level, it's important to understand how the limitations and systems within the engine may factor into how you want to create your levels. Certain engines give complete freedom to the designer, allowing them to create and alter whatever they wish, whereas other engines restrict the designer to set systems and libraries so that you can stay within their framework to allow for easier development. So firstly, what I'm going to recommend is if you really don't want to mess around with an engine and you just want to have a little bit more fun, check out the editors found in your favorite video games. There are so many games now that allow you to create and use their systems to make levels within their worlds. This list of games here are all capable of this. Using a level editor can be a quick and easy way to get something made, allowing you to focus on the process and not necessarily achieving a greater outcome. You also have the option to use features found in existing free-to-use game engines, one of them being the popular Unity engine, as they have this amazing add-on, ProBuilder. What's so special about ProBuilder is how easy it is to use and pick up from just watching a few YouTube videos. Some games have even said that they use ProBuilder to actually build their environments and use them in the final game. This can be a great starting point for people wanting to use a 3D space. If you want to go a step up from this, something a bit more complicated you should go check out is Unreal Engine. Although this will take a lot more time and dedication to understand, you will find that the available systems and functions with Unreal are insane, and you can make it seamlessly work within the game's limitations. I cannot stress enough though, if you do not have experience of Unreal Engine 5, this can be a really daunting experience. I strongly encourage that if you feel like Unreal is the engine for you, go into YouTube and look into very specific things that you want to learn and branch out from there slowly. If you don't wish to fiddle with learning how to use an open-ended game engine right now, these more niche tools might just be the thing for you. TrenchBroom is a Quake engine editor that allows you to create your very own Quake maps. This tool specializes in quick geometry and texture placement accompanied by an amazing lighting system. Although its interface may seem old to today's standards, Dump Truck DS has a phenomenal playlist on how to get started using TrenchBroom that instantly makes new users feel capable of using the tool. I personally find TrenchBroom really effective at what it's trying to accomplish, as its approach is simple and straight to the point without the need for a vast understanding of how everything works. You can get in there, make something, and get out. Finally, I haven't forgotten that if you're wishing to utilize a 2D space, then your best option to make your levels are most likely GameMaker Studio, RPG Maker, and Godot, all coming with amazing tileset features that make applying tiles and textures for your maps super accessible. Although they all provide the same functionality, the ability to use their tile maps differ. I include these to strongly encourage anyone that's interested in using 2D to check out these 3 tools and begin exploring which one suits them best. Once you become familiar with your tool of choice, your next step is to figure out how to turn the creation of your levels into steps. Each time you go to make a level, it can be helpful to have some steps in mind that you can rely on to make sure your levels are built as intended. These are the personal steps that I use to build my levels. They're an amalgamation of my own personal experiences with level design, as well as Jolly Menzel and Seth Marinello's GDC talks, solving puzzle design, and level design in a day. Videos that go in great depths of the concepts I'll be presenting to you. It's important to keep in mind the rationale your players are experiencing. Do you want your levels to flow and make sense to the players as they progress? Or is it utter chaos and a different experience altogether that overwhelms them? What details are players really taking in? If you don't want to overwhelm the player and cut some corners at the same time, reuse is the option for you. And of all things, I encourage it when possible. When building your level, you don't need to recreate every single asset to be unique. Reused assets can be used as a constant instruction between the player and the level, allowing it to convey what your intentions are to the player. You're trying to build a relationship between the player and your level, and these instructions and small moments determine how the player navigates it. Personally, I really like to approach making levels in chunks. As players can only intake so much information at a time, it can be easy to get carried away and fill your levels with endless detail. By separating the level into different chunks, you can be aware of how each section works and how they meld together from chunk to chunk. By having this in mind, you're able to take more control over your space and really understand how your level works. Most importantly, don't be afraid to be critical of your own work. Not everything has to make it into the final cut. Detail can be left to the side or repurposed for another aspect of your level. Finally, if you're capable of building a level into a playable game and you're seeking other people's thoughts, I strongly encourage, if given the opportunity, to sit down with someone and hear out their thought process when interacting with your level. Setting up playtest sessions where you directly observe the player interacting with your level can do a lot of the heavy thinking needed to further improve the fun of your design, as you can easily figure out what details can be improved or work as is already. If you've made it this far into the video, I just want to say thank you for watching. I hope you've learned something new today and that after this video, a bit of you feels like making a level is more approachable than you once thought. If you're inspired to go make a level, head back to chapter 1 and have fun with the process. Thank you.